I was halfway through my third bowl of instant ramen when my father slammed the apartment door so hard the light bulb above our kitchen table flickered like it was having a seizure. I didn't even flinch. I'd lived with Victor Hayes for 18 years. I knew exactly what a door slam at 3 in the afternoon meant. He'd lost money again. My name is Ren Hayes. I'm 18 years old and I've been blind since birth. Some genetic condition the doctors explained to my parents using words I was too young to understand and too blind to read about later. I've never seen a sunset, never seen my own face, never seen the disappointment in my father's eyes when he looks at me, though I can hear it in his voice every single day. Ren! My father's voice boomed through our tiny two-bedroom apartment. I could smell the alcohol on him from across the room, cheap whiskey mixing with cigarette smoke and desperation. Great news, son. We don't owe money anymore. I slurped the last noodle from my bowl, wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. Did you finally get a job? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Even better, Victor said, and I heard the manic edge in his voice that meant he'd done something monumentally stupid. I sold you. My chopsticks clattered into the bowl. Broth splattered across my worn jeans. You... what? Sold you. To the Volkov triplets. For $500,000. I sat very still, processing. The Volkov triplets. Everyone in the city knew about them. They ran the largest shipping empire in the country, owned half the commercial real estate downtown, and rumor had it they'd made their fortune through methods that weren't exactly legal. People whispered about them in the grocery store checkout line, about business rivals who disappeared, about shipments that came and went in the dead of night, about the three identical brothers who were never seen apart and never smiled. They were dangerous, powerful, and apparently my father had just sold me to them like I was a used car. 500,000, I said slowly. I'm worth less than a luxury sedan. Couldn't you have negotiated? I bet you could have gotten at least $550K if you'd mentioned I come with my own white cane. That's a value add. What are you complaining about? Victor snapped. The Volkovs are the richest alphas in the entire city. They own that massive estate on the north side, the one with the iron gates and the security cameras. You're going to live in luxury. I told them you were healthy and obedient and useful. They agreed to wipe my entire debt in exchange for you moving in with them tomorrow. Tomorrow. I had less than 24 hours before my life changed completely. You told them I was useful, I repeated flatly. Did you mention I'm blind? That I can't see their faces or navigate their probably massive house or do half the things they're expecting? Victor waved his hand. I couldn't see the gesture, but I could hear the dismissive rustle of his jacket. That's your problem to figure out. I already signed the contract. You move in tomorrow at noon. Anton Volkov's head of household will pick you up. And if they change their minds when they realize you lied about me being useful, I asked, when they figure out I can't see and I'm basically a liability, then you convince them not to send you back, Victor said coldly. Because if they do, I'll owe them $500,000 plus interest, and I'll make sure you regret costing me that money. He grabbed his jacket and left, probably heading back to whatever gambling den had taken his money in the first place. The door slammed again. I sat at the table for a long time, listening to the apartment settle into silence around me. Then I started packing. My belongings fit into one small suitcase, my white cane folded into its compact form, 7 audiobook players loaded with novels I'd listened to so many times I could recite passages from memory. My softest sweaters, the ones I'd knitted myself by feel, each stitch a meditation, a photo album I'd never seen but kept anyway because it had belonged to my mother before she died. My guide cat, Pepper, a small black cat who'd learned to navigate for me by meowing when obstacles were in my path. I also packed a return bus ticket, just in case. I couldn't see the denomination printed on it, but I'd asked the corner store owner to make sure it was enough to get me back to this neighborhood. I had a bad feeling I'd need it. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay on my bed in the darkness that was my entire world and tried to imagine what the Volkov triplets looked like. Were they tall? Short? Did they have kind faces or cruel ones? Not that I'd ever know. I'd have to learn them by voice, by scent, by the weight of their footsteps and the way they moved through space. Pepper curled up on my chest, purring. I scratched behind her ears. What do you think, Pepper? Think these alphas are going to murder us when they realize I'm not what they paid for? Pepper meowed. I chose to interpret that as probably not, but packed the good tuna just in case. The next morning, exactly at noon, Someone knocked on the apartment door, 3 sharp raps, precise and commanding. I'd been ready for an hour, sitting on the couch with my suitcase at my feet and Pepper in her carrier beside me. Victor had already left, couldn't even be bothered to see me off. I opened the door. Anton? Master Wren. The voice was older, refined, with an accent I couldn't quite place. European, maybe. I'm Anton Petrov, head of household for the Volkov estate. I've come to escort you to your new home. Is there a lot of stairs? I asked. I need to know for navigation purposes. Also, are there any aggressive dogs? Pepper doesn't do well with aggressive dogs. She's more of a hiss and hide type of cat. There was a pause. Then, there are stairs, but we have ramps as well. And no dogs. Master Caspian is allergic. Which one is Caspian? The eldest Triplet, Anton said. He manages the business operations. Master Rylan handles security and logistics. Master Kieran oversees public relations and legitimate enterprises. Business operations, security, public relations, very fancy words for what everyone knew was organized crime. Anton helped me into a car, not just any car. The seats were leather, butter soft, and the engine was so quiet I could barely hear it running. We drove for 30 minutes. I tracked the turns by the way my body swayed, tried to build a mental map of the route. Left, right, straight for a long time, another left, through what sounded like a gate that buzzed open electronically. When the car stopped, Anton opened my door and offered his arm. There are 17 steps up to the front entrance. I'll guide you. I took his arm, grabbed Pepper's carrier with my other hand, and let him lead me up. The steps were stone. I could tell by the sound of my shoes against them and the slight coolness I felt through the soles. At the top, massive doors opened. I heard the creak of heavy hinges, smelled furniture polish and something floral. Roses, maybe. The foyer is 30 feet wide and 40 feet deep, Anton narrated quietly. Black and white marble floors in a checkerboard pattern. There's a grand staircase directly ahead, splitting left and right at the landing. Chandelier overhead, crystal, probably 10 feet in diameter. The masters are waiting for you in the study. It's through the door to your right. How far? 20 paces. I counted them in my head as he guided me. The door was already open. Anton led me inside, and I immediately felt the change in acoustics, smaller room, carpet underfoot instead of marble, and 3 distinct presences that made my omega biology stand up and take notice. Alphas, 3 of them. Their scents hit me like a physical wall. Smoke and whiskey, sharp and commanding. That had to be Caspian. Pine and steel, clean and cold. Rylan. Sandalwood and citrus, warm but with an edge underneath. Kieran. My suppressants were working overtime, and I'd never been more grateful for them in my life. You're Wren Hayes. The first voice, smoke and whiskey. Caspian was deep and cold. Not cruel, exactly, but completely devoid of warmth. The debt payment. That's me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Wren Hayes, human collateral, currently worth $500,000, according to my father's extremely questionable judgment. Silence. I could feel them staring at me. I was used to people staring, sighted people always did when they realized I couldn't see them back. Usually they looked at me with pity, sometimes with curiosity. I had no idea what these 3 were thinking. Your father said you were healthy and capable, Caspian continued. Is that accurate? Here we go. Time to destroy my father's lies and probably get thrown out before I'd even set my suitcase down. My father is a liar and a gambling addict who would sell his own kidney if he thought it would cover his debts. I said flatly, I'm blind. Have been since birth. Some genetic thing with my optic nerves that means they never developed properly. I can't see your faces. Can't navigate unfamiliar places without help. Can't drive. Can't read regular books. Can't do half the things you probably expected when you agreed to this transaction. I took a breath. So if you want to send me back and demand a refund, I understand. I brought my bus fare home. Well, I brought what I think is bus fare. I had to ask someone to check the bills for me, so it might actually be Monopoly money. I apologize for my father wasting your time and money on defective merchandise. More silence, heavier this time. Then a sound I didn't expect, laughter, rich and genuine, coming from the sandalwood and citrus direction. Kieran. You're blind? And you're making jokes about it? Kieran sounded delighted. That's the most interesting thing anyone said in this house in months. Your father told us you were obedient, Caspian said. His voice hadn't warmed, but there was something in it now. Curiosity, maybe. My father also thinks his fake Rolex looks authentic, so his judgment on most matters is extremely questionable, I replied. You can't see us at all? A third voice, quieter than the others, but somehow more intense. Rylan, pine, and steel. Not even a little bit, I confirmed. You could be bright purple with tentacles and I wouldn't know. You could be standing right in front of me or across the room and I'd have to guess based on where your voice is coming from. You could be making faces at me right now and I'd be completely oblivious. Are we? Kieran asked, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Making faces? I don't know. Are you? No, Rylan said. We're just looking at you. Well, that's only fair since I can't look back, I said. I heard movement, footsteps crossing the carpet, 2 sets, no 3, moving to the far side of the room. I heard low voices conferring but couldn't make out the words. I stood there holding Pepper's carrier, trying not to panic. This was it. They were deciding whether to keep me or send me back. My entire future hanging in the balance based on a conversation I couldn't hear. The footsteps returned, all 3 of them, I could tell by the different weights. Caspian moved like he owned the ground beneath him. Ryland's steps were lighter, more careful. Kieran's had a slight bounce. You're staying. Caspian's voice, final and absolute. Your father's debt is paid. You live here now. Your blindness changes nothing. I blinked, confused. I'm sorry, what? You're staying, Kieran repeated, and his voice was warm now, genuinely pleased. Welcome to the Volkov estate, Ren Hayes. We're going to take very good care of you. But I'm blind, I said stupidly. I'm going to walk into furniture and get lost in your probably enormous house and be completely useless for whatever you wanted me for. We wanted you, Rylan interrupted quietly. That's all, just you. I didn't understand, couldn't understand. But Anton was taking my suitcase, and Kieran was offering his arm, and Caspian was giving instructions about preparing the blue bedroom on the 2nd floor, and suddenly I was being led out of the study and upstairs and down a hallway and into a room that Anton described as 20 feet by 25 feet, king bed against the far wall, ensuite bathroom to the left, windows overlooking the garden. I'll leave you to settle in, Anton said. Dinner is at 7. Master Kieran will come collect you at 1:45. Then I was alone, in the most expensive room I'd probably ever occupied, with a cat who was extremely suspicious of the fancy curtains and a brain that couldn't process what had just happened. They'd kept me, even knowing I was blind, even knowing I wasn't what my father had advertised. They'd kept me anyway. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was so soft I sank into it like a cloud and tried to figure out what I'd just gotten myself into. The first week living in the Volkov estate was an exercise in sensory overload and careful navigation. The house was massive. I'd known it would be, but I hadn't understood the scale until I started learning to move through it. Anton became my guide. Every morning after the triplets left for work, which I suspected involved significantly more danger than spreadsheets and conference calls, Anton would walk me through a different section of the house, describing everything in meticulous detail. The main staircase is 42 steps from bottom to top, he'd say. The banister is mahogany, polished every morning. There's a landing after 21 steps where it splits. Left goes to the east wing where the master's bedrooms are located. Right goes to the west wing where your bedroom and the library are. I counted every step, felt every texture, built mental maps in my head. The house had a logic to it once you understood the layout. The ground floor was all public spaces, the study, the dining room, a ballroom that hadn't been used in years, the kitchen that smelled like herbs and bread. The 2nd floor was private quarters. The 3rd floor was storage and guest rooms. But more than the house, I was learning the triplets. Caspian left early every morning. I'd hear him on the stairs at exactly 6:30 a.m., his footsteps purposeful and quick. He smelled like coffee, he drank it black. I could tell when he passed close to me an expensive cologne that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. He didn't talk much. When he did, his voice was clipped and efficient, giving instructions to Anton or speaking on his phone in languages I didn't recognize. He scared me a little, not because he was cruel, but because he was so controlled. Like every word was calculated, every action had a purpose. I didn't know what to do with someone who showed no emotion. Rylan was quieter than his brothers, but somehow more present. He moved through the house like a shadow, his footsteps so light I often didn't hear him coming. He'd appear beside me, and I'd startle, and he'd apologize in that soft, intense voice that made my omega hindbrain perk up with interest. He watched me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. When I was in a room, I could sense his attention like a physical weight. It should have been creepy, but instead it felt protective. Like he was making sure I didn't hurt myself, didn't need anything, was safe. Kieran was the easiest to be around. He talked constantly, narrating everything in a way that made me feel less blind and more like I was experiencing the world through someone else's eyes. "The garden is in full bloom right now," he'd say when we walked past the windows. "There are roses the color of blood, dark red, almost burgundy, and jasmine climbing the south wall, white flowers everywhere. The fountain in the center has 3 tiers, water falling in sheets. There are koi in the pond, orange and white. One of them is absolutely massive. I swear it's the size of a small dog. You don't have to describe everything to me," I told him once. "I've been blind my whole life. I'm used to not seeing things." "I know," Kieran said, "but I want you to experience it anyway, even if it's just through my words." That did something to my chest, made it feel tight and warm at the same time. I started stress baking at 2 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. The kitchen was easy to navigate. Anton had shown me where everything was, and I'd memorized the layout after 2 days. Mixing bowls on the left, flour and sugar in the pantry straight ahead, oven to the right. I made cookies by feel and smell, chocolate chip and oatmeal raisin and snickerdoodles. I'd leave them on the counter in the morning, not sure if anyone would eat them or if they'd just get thrown away. But when I came down for breakfast, the plates were always empty. No one mentioned the cookies, but they kept disappearing. One morning I found a note next to the empty plate. I couldn't read it, of course, but when I asked Anton what it said, he told me in his perfectly neutral voice. It says, "Make the chocolate chip ones again. C. Caspian." The cold, controlled alpha who barely spoke to me had taken time to leave a note about cookies. I made chocolate chip cookies that night. Used the good chocolate Anton showed me where to find, the kind that probably cost more per pound than my old apartment's monthly rent. I made 3 batches and left them all on the counter. The next morning, all 3 batches were gone. The first time I got lost in the house was 2 weeks in. I'd been trying to find my way from the library back to my bedroom and had gotten turned around somewhere on the 2nd floor. All the hallways sounded the same, and I'd lost count of the doors I'd passed. I stood in the middle of what I thought might be the correct hallway, completely disoriented, trying not to panic. Pepper was back in my room. My white cane was in my hand, but it wasn't helping when I didn't know where I was or which direction I'd come from. "Ren?" Rylan's voice, quiet and close. I hadn't heard him approach. "You're in the East Wing. Your room is in the West Wing." I got turned around, I admitted, hating how my voice shook slightly. I thought I was going the right way, but I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere. "You went left at the top of the stairs instead of right," Rylan said. He was closer now. I could smell pine and steel. "Easy mistake. The acoustics are similar. I'm sorry. I know you have better things to do than rescue me from getting lost in your own house." "I don't." His hand touched my elbow, gentle but firm. "Come on, I'll walk you back." He guided me through the house, narrating the route in that quiet, intense way he had. Straight for 20 paces, then right. The West Wing hallway has a slight echo, you can hear the difference. Your room is the 4th door on the left, the doorknob is brass, you can feel the maker's mark on the back of it if you run your fingers over it. When we reached my room, he didn't leave immediately. I heard him hesitate in the doorway. "You don't have to be sorry," Rylan said quietly. "For getting lost, for being blind, for any of it. You're learning. That takes time." "Your brothers must be regretting the purchase," I said, trying for humor, but it came out more bitter than I intended. 500,000 for an Omega who can't even navigate a hallway. "We're not." His voice was very close now, right in front of me. "Regretting it. At all." Then he was gone, his footsteps fading down the hallway. I stood in my doorway for a long time, my heart beating faster than it should, trying to figure out why his words had affected me so much. Dinner in the Volkov household was a formal affair. Every night at 7, Anton would come collect me and lead me to the dining room where the triplets were already seated. The first few dinners were silent and awkward. I had no idea what to say to three dangerous alpha crime lords, so I said nothing. Just ate my food carefully, trying not to make a mess, hyper-aware of every sound I made. But gradually, Kieran started filling the silence. "Ren, you have to hear about what happened at the office today," he'd say. One of our shipping managers tried to explain why a container went missing, and his story involved a seagull, a fork truck, and a very unfortunate series of events. I'm not sure I believed him, but the detail was impressive. Or, "There's a new restaurant opening downtown. They're doing a whole opening night thing. Anton, we should take Ren. The menu is all small plates designed to be eaten by hand. Ren could actually enjoy it without worrying about which fork to use." Caspian never contributed to these conversations. He'd eat in silence, occasionally responding to Kieran with single-word answers, but I noticed he never left the table until I was finished eating. Even if he was done first, he'd stay, his presence a solid weight at the head of the table. Rylan would ask me questions, quiet ones, genuinely interested. "What are you reading?" Anton had shown me the audiobook library, thousands of titles. "What kind of cookies should I request next?" "Is Pepper adjusting well?" I answered carefully at first, not sure if they actually cared or if this was just polite conversation. But Rylan would remember my answers, would reference them days later. "You said you liked mystery novels. I had Anton order the newest release from that author you mentioned." They were paying attention to me, actually paying attention. Not just tolerating my presence because they'd paid for it, but actively trying to make me comfortable. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The first time I heard Caspian laugh was 3 weeks in. I was in the kitchen late at night making a new batch of cookies, and I'd forgotten Anton had mentioned the fancy mixer would be loud. When I turned it on, it roared to life like a jet engine. I jumped, knocked over the bag of flour, and it exploded all over the counter and my shirt and probably the floor. I stood there covered in flour, the mixer still roaring, and I couldn't even see the mess I'd made to start cleaning it up. "Need help?" Caspian's voice cut through the mixer noise. I fumbled for the off switch, managed to shut it down. "I'm so sorry. I forgot the mixer was loud and I got startled and I knocked over the flour and I can't see how bad the mess is, but I'm sure it's everywhere and I'll clean it up. I just need to figure out where everything landed." "You look like a ghost," Caspian said. And then he laughed. It was brief, just a short huff of amusement, but it was real. "You're white from head to toe." "That's the flour," I said stupidly. "I know it's the flour." Was that amusement in his voice? "Stop moving. You're making it worse. Let me help." He guided me to a chair, then I heard him moving around the kitchen, the sound of a broom, a dustpan, a damp cloth. He was cleaning up my mess without complaint, without making me feel stupid for making it. "I can do it," I protested. "I made the mess." "Sit." His voice was commanding, that alpha authority that made my omega instincts want to obey. "You'll cut yourself on the broken bowl. There's glass." I'd broken a bowl too? Great. Just great. 5 minutes later, Caspian's hand was on my shoulder. "Come on, you need to clean up." He led me to the downstairs bathroom, turned on the water in the sink. "Your face is completely white. Wash it off before the flour hardens." I felt for the soap, the water, started washing my face and hands. I could feel Caspian standing in the doorway, watching. "I'm sorry about the mess," I said again. "And the broken bowl. I'll replace it." "It's a bowl," Caspian interrupted. "We have hundreds, and the mess is already cleaned up. Stop apologizing." "I just feel useless," I admitted before I could stop myself. "You paid all this money for me, and I can't even make cookies without destroying the kitchen." "You made 17 batches of perfect cookies before tonight," Caspian said. "One disaster doesn't negate 17 successes." I turned off the water, reached for where I thought the towel was. Caspian's hand caught mine, guided it to the towel rack. "You're not useless, Ren," he said quietly. "You're adjusting to a new place, learning a new layout, doing it all without sight. That takes more strength than most people have." My throat felt tight. "You don't have to say that just because you paid for me." "I don't say things I don't mean." His voice was closer now. "And we didn't buy you. We paid your father's debt. There's a difference." "Is there?" I asked. "Yes." His hand was still on mine, warm and solid. "We're not your owners, Ren. We're your." He trailed off, like he wasn't sure what word to use. We're your alphas, if you'll have us. My heart stopped, then started again, twice as fast. My alphas, I repeated slowly. If you'll have us, Caspian said again. Then his hand left mine, his footsteps retreated, and I was alone in the bathroom with my heart racing and my brain trying to process what had just happened. The first time someone outside the estate saw me with the triplets was at a business dinner 4 weeks after I'd arrived. Caspian had announced at breakfast that I'd be attending a formal dinner that night with investors. It's expected that we bring he paused, our Omega. People will ask questions if you're not there. I'll embarrass you, I said immediately. I can't see the table settings. I'll use the wrong fork. I'll spill something. You won't, Kieran interrupted. I'll sit next to you. I'll guide you through the whole thing, and anyone who has a problem with you can take it up with us. That night, Anton helped me into clothes fancier than I'd ever worn. Soft pants that fit perfectly, a sweater that felt like cashmere, shoes that were definitely leather and probably cost more than my old monthly rent. The restaurant was loud and crowded and completely disorienting. But Kieran kept his hand on my lower back the whole time, navigating me through the space, narrating quietly. 3 steps up here. Table directly ahead. Your chair is to the right. Caspian's on your left. I'm on your right. Ryland's across from you. He described the table settings, told me where everything was. Water glass at 2 o'clock, wine at 1 o'clock, bread plate at 10 o'clock. Salad fork on the outside, dinner fork next to it. Don't worry about the rest. I'll hand you what you need when you need it. The dinner started fine. The triplets' business associates asked polite questions, and I gave polite answers. I could feel their curiosity, their assessment. They were trying to figure out what I was doing here, why the Volkovs had an Omega at all when they'd famously never had one before. Then someone, a man with a nasal voice who smelled like too much cologne, said, I heard you paid Victor Hayes' debt by taking his son. 500,000, wasn't it? That's quite a price for an Omega, especially one who's... He paused meaningfully. Impaired. The temperature at the table dropped 10 degrees. Impaired? Kieran's voice was still pleasant, but there was steel underneath it. I'm sorry. I don't think I understand what you mean. Well, he's blind, isn't he? Cologne Man said. I mean, no offense to the boy, but 500,000 for damaged goods seems a bit excessive. You could have gotten a perfectly functional Omega for half that price. I felt Ryland go very still across the table, felt Caspian's hand clench on his knife. Damaged goods, I said before any of the triplets could respond. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Sir, I can't see you, but I can smell you. That cologne you're wearing? You've applied so much of it that it's actually triggering my Omega scent sensitivity, which means you're probably drowning in it and using it to cover up nervous sweat. You're scared. Of them, I gestured vaguely toward the triplets. That's why you're trying to insult me from across the table instead of saying it to their faces. You think, if you make me the target, they'll see you as an ally instead of a threat. I took a breath. But here's the thing about being blind, sir. I've spent my whole life learning to read people by their voices, their scents, their breathing patterns. And, right now, your breathing is shallow, your voice shakes when you talk, you're not confident, you're panicking. If I'm damaged goods, what does that make you? Because from where I'm sitting, I'm pretty sure the triplets value me significantly more than they value you. Absolute silence. Then Caspian's voice, colder than I'd ever heard it. You have 30 seconds to leave this restaurant before I have you removed, permanently. I didn't mean any offense, Cologne Man started. 25 seconds, Ryland said softly. Cologne Man fled. I heard his chair scrape back, his footsteps hurrying away. That was magnificent, Kieran breathed. His hand found mine under the table, squeezed. Absolutely magnificent. I probably shouldn't have said that, I said, my face burning. I made a scene. I embarrassed you in front of your investors. You defended yourself, Caspian interrupted. No one insults our Omega and walks away unscathed. Our Omega. He said it so casually, like it was an established fact. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. People were more respectful after that, more careful with their words. When we finally left, Kieran kept his arm around my waist the whole way to the car. You know what you did in there, right? He asked as we drove home. Made everyone uncomfortable? Showed everyone that you're not just some Omega they paid for. Rylan said from the front seat. You're ours, and you're not afraid to remind people of that. That night, lying in my bed with Pepper purring on my chest, I finally let myself think about what was happening. These three dangerous, powerful alphas were calling me theirs, were defending me, were proud of me for standing up for myself, and I was starting to want to be theirs in return. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. It started with small things. Caspian began leaving books on my nightstand, audiobooks Anton would tell me about, always mystery novels or thrillers, always from authors I'd mentioned liking. He never said anything about it, just left them there like they'd appeared by magic. Rylan started teaching me self-defense. Not because he thought I'd need it, he assured me, but because he thought I should know how to protect myself regardless. We'd practice in the gym, and he'd guide my hands through the movements, teaching me to fight by feel rather than sight. An attacker won't announce themselves, he'd say quietly. You need to recognize the signs, the change in air pressure when someone moves close, the scent of aggression, the sound of footsteps with intent. He was patient when I got frustrated, steady when I got tired, and encouraging when I actually managed to execute a move correctly. And he was always careful never to actually hurt me. Kieran started reading to me every night. He'd knock on my door around 9, come in with whatever book he'd chosen, and settle into the armchair by my bed. His voice would wash over me, sometimes adventure novels, sometimes romance, once a cookbook that he'd read with such dramatic flair that I'd laughed until I cried. Why do you do this? I asked him one night. You must have better things to do than read to me. There's nothing better, Kieran said simply. I like making you happy. This makes you happy. 3 weeks after the business dinner, I woke up at 2 a.m. to the sound of raised voices downstairs. I couldn't make out the words, but I recognized the tones Caspian, angry in a way I'd never heard before. Rylan, cold and deadly, and a third voice, one I'd hoped never to hear again. My father. I grabbed my white cane and made my way downstairs as quickly as I dared, counting steps, following the sounds. They were in the study. The door was open. Absolutely no right to keep my son from me, Victor was saying, his voice slurred with alcohol. I'm his father. I have legal custody. You sold him, Caspian's voice cut through like a blade. You signed a contract. You gave up all parental rights in exchange for payment of your debt. That contract was signed under duress. You weren't under duress, Rylan interrupted. You were desperate and greedy. There's a difference. I want to see him, Victor demanded. I want to see Ren. I know you're keeping him here against his will, probably forcing him to. I'm not being kept here against my will, I said from the doorway. The room went silent. I felt all three of them turn to look at me. Ren, Victor said, and I could hear the false warmth in his voice. Thank God. I've been so worried about you. These men, they won't let me see you, won't let me check that you're okay. I came to take you home. I'm home, I said clearly. I'm staying here. By choice. They're using you, Victor insisted. Taking advantage of you because you're blind, because you can't see what they're really like. I know exactly what they're like. I interrupted. They're nothing like you. They've never lied to me, never sold me, never made me feel like I was a burden. So no, I'm not going anywhere with you. Ren, be reasonable. Get out, Caspian said, his voice absolutely glacial. You have 10 seconds before I call security. You can't keep me from my son. He's not your son anymore, Rylan said quietly. You gave up that right when you sold him, and if you ever come back here, we'll make sure you regret it. I heard Victor sputter, start to argue, but then footsteps heavy, rough, escorted him out. Security. The door slammed. The silence that followed was deafening. Ren, Kieran said gently, are you okay? I realized I was shaking. I needed him to know that I chose this, that I'm not a victim here. You're not, Caspian agreed. His footsteps approached. But you also don't have to be okay. He's your father. No matter what he did, that still means something. It means he gave me life and then spent 18 years making me wish he hadn't, I said bitterly. Then I felt the tears start, hot and unexpected. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm crying. He doesn't deserve tears. You're not crying for him, Rylan said softly. You're crying for the father you should have had, the one you deserved. Arms wrapped around me, Kieran. I could tell by the sandalwood scent. Then another set, Rylan, pine and steel. And finally, Caspian, smoke, and whiskey, completing the circle. They held me while I cried, didn't tell me to stop, didn't tell me I was being silly, just held me and let me break down in a way I'd never let myself do before. When the tears finally stopped, I was exhausted. Kieran scooped me up like I weighed nothing, carried me back upstairs to my room. I felt him lay me down on the bed, pull the covers up. Stay, I heard myself say. Please. I don't want to be alone. A pause. Then the bed dipped on one side, then the other, then the third. All three of them, in my bed, surrounding me with their warmth and their sense and their solid, undeniable presence. We're here, Caspian murmured. We're not going anywhere. I fell asleep between them, safer than I'd ever felt in my life. When I woke up, they were still there. After that night, something shifted between us. The triplets stopped treating me like a guest and started treating me like I belonged. I'd find Caspian in the study at midnight, working through contracts, and instead of leaving him alone, I'd bring coffee and sit in the chair across from his desk. Sometimes we'd talk. Sometimes we'd just exist in comfortable silence. Rylan started seeking me out when he came home from whatever dangerous business he conducted. He'd find me in the library or the kitchen, and he'd sit close to me, close enough that I could feel his body heat, and he'd tell me about his day in that quiet, intense way he had. Kieran started calling me ours openly. Our Ren needs new sweaters, his are getting worn. Our Omega made cookies again, they're in the kitchen. Our mate is in the library. Our mate. The words made my heart race every time. But the bond hadn't completed. They hadn't claimed me, hadn't bitten me, hadn't asked me to be theirs officially. I started to wonder if they were waiting for something. Or if maybe they didn't actually want that, maybe they just wanted the companionship, the domestic arrangement, without the permanent commitment. The thought hurt more than it should have. 2 months after I'd moved in, I went into heat. I'd been on suppressants for years, the kind that kept my heats manageable and infrequent. But my last pill had run out 2 days ago, and I'd been meaning to ask Anton to pick up my refill, but I'd forgotten. And now I was waking up at 3 a.m. with my skin on fire and my body screaming for alpha and 3 very powerful, very unmated alphas sleeping down the hall. I tried to stay quiet, tried to ride it out, but heat didn't work like that. Within an hour, I was whimpering, my scent flooding the room with sweet honey and desperate Omega need. My door opened. Ren? Kieran's voice, rough with sleep and something darker. We can smell you. Are you? He stopped. Fuck. You're in heat. I'm sorry, I gasped. My suppressants ran out and I forgot to refill them and I didn't think it would happen this fast. It's okay, Kieran said, but his voice was strained. It's okay. We'll handle this. I'll get Caspian and Rylan. No, I begged. Please don't. I don't want them to see me like this. I don't want them to feel obligated to help me just because I'm here and in heat and... Obligated? Rylan's voice from the doorway. Ren, we've been holding ourselves back for 2 months because we didn't want to rush you. Didn't want you to think we only wanted you for this. But if you think for 1 second that we see this as an obligation, we want you. Caspian's voice, rough and deep, all 3 of them in my room now. Have wanted you since the moment you walked into our study making jokes about being worth less than a luxury car. We're not helping you because we're obligated. We're helping you because you're ours and we take care of what's ours. But you never said I started. We were waiting for you to be ready, Kieran interrupted. Waiting for you to want us the way we want you. Do you, Ren? Do you want us? I could barely think through the heat haze, through the overwhelming need. But I knew the answer, had known it for weeks. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I want you. All of you. I've wanted you for so long I thought I was going crazy. Then let us take care of you, Rylan said softly. Let us give you what you need. They moved toward the bed, and I felt the mattress dip as they surrounded me. Hands on my skin, gentle and reverent. Scents surrounding me, smoke and whiskey, pine and steel, sandalwood and citrus, all of them mixing together into something that smelled like home. We need your permission, Caspian said, his voice strained with control. We need you to say yes. Actually, say yes, Ren. Because once we start, once we claim you, there's no going back, you'll be ours forever. Yes, I said clearly. Yes, I want this. I want you, forever. The first touch was Kieran's mouth on mine, kissing me like I was air and he'd been drowning, then Ryland's hands on my sides, mapping my skin like he was memorizing it. Then Caspian's voice in my ear, low and commanding. We're going to take care of you. Going to make you ours. Tell us if it's too much. It wasn't too much. It was everything. They took turns preparing me, 3 sets of hands working in concert, making sure I was ready, making sure I wanted this. And when they finally took me one after another, each claiming me in their own way, I felt the bond snap into place like a physical thing. Caspian bit first, his teeth sinking into my right scent gland with an alpha growl that vibrated through my whole body. The pain was sharp and bright and lasted only a second before pleasure crashed over me in waves. I could feel him through the bond suddenly, his satisfaction, his possessiveness, his bone-deep relief at finally claiming me. Ryland bit second, my left scent gland, his hands holding me steady as his teeth marked me as his. The bond doubled, intensified. I could feel both of them now, their emotions mixing with mine until I couldn't tell where I ended and they began. Kieran bit last, the back of my neck where alpha marks traditionally went, and the third bond completed the pack. All 3 of them, connected to me, connected to each other, through me. Mine, Caspian growled against my skin. Ours, Ryland corrected. Forever, Kieran finished. I turned my head, seeking Caspian's wrist. Bit down with my own omega teeth, marking him in return. Then Ryland's wrist. Then Kieran's. Claiming them as thoroughly as they'd claimed me. The heat lasted 3 days. 3 days of them taking care of me, feeding me, holding me, claiming me, over and over until I was bonded so completely I couldn't imagine existing without them. When it finally broke, I woke up in the massive bed in Caspian's room. They'd moved me there on the second day, surrounded by all 3 of them. Caspian's arm was around my waist. Ryland's hand was in my hair. Kieran was pressed against my back. I could feel them through the bond, could sense their emotions like echoes of my own. Caspian's contentment, Ryland's protective satisfaction, Kieran's pure joy. You're awake, Caspian murmured against my temple. How do you feel? Sore, I admitted. Happy, claimed. Good, he said. Because you are. Completely and permanently ours. No regrets? Kieran asked softly. I turned toward his voice, let my hand find his face, trace the shape of his jaw, his cheekbones, his lips. I'd never seen him, but I knew him by touch now, knew all of them. No regrets, I said, but I still can't see your faces. You could still be purple with tentacles for all I know. Kieran laughed, that rich, delighted sound. Would you care if we were? Not even a little bit, I admitted, because I don't need to see you to know you. I know you by your voices, your scents, the way you move. I know Caspian takes his coffee black and works too late and falls asleep at his desk. I know Ryland walks like a shadow and watches over me like I might disappear. I know Kieran narrates the world for me because he wants me to experience it even if I can't see it. I don't need sight to know I love you. Silence, heavy and charged. Then Caspian, say that again. Which part? The last part. I love you, I repeated. All of you. I've probably loved you for weeks, but I was too scared to say it. We love you too, Ryland said quietly. Have since the moment you walked into our study making jokes about Monopoly money. We were never going to let you go, Kieran added. From the second we scented you, we knew you were ours. We were just waiting for you to realize you wanted to be. I stayed in their bed that night and every night after. They moved all my belongings into Caspian's room, our room now, and I learned to navigate it by touch and scent and memory. Learned where each of them slept, how they moved around each other, the rhythm of our shared life. Anton started calling me Master Wren, which made me laugh every time. I wasn't anyone's master, but I was their mate, their omega, their partner. 3 months after the claiming, the triplets had to attend a major business gala, the kind with hundreds of people, press, photographers. They asked if I wanted to attend. I'll embarrass you, I said immediately. I can't see who's who. I'll bump into people. You'll be with us, Caspian interrupted, and anyone who has a problem with you will have a problem with us. The gala was overwhelming. The noise, the scents, the press of bodies. But Kieran kept his hand on my lower back the whole time, narrating quietly. 3 steps up here, table to your left. Someone's about to walk past on your right. We were halfway through the evening when I heard a familiar voice. Nasal, cologne-soaked. The man from the business dinner months ago. Well, if it isn't the Volkov's blind pet, he said loudly enough for nearby people to hear. I heard you actually let them claim you. Desperate for security, were you? Or just desperate for alphas willing to overlook your defects? The temperature dropped. I felt all three triplets tense. But before they could respond, I spoke. Lorenzo, right? I said, turning toward his voice. I remember you from the last dinner. You were the one who ran away when given 30 seconds to leave. I timed it. You made it out in 22. Impressive speed for someone in dress shoes. A ripple of laughter from the people around us. I'm not sure what you mean by defects, I continued. I'm blind, yes, but I can hear the tremor in your voice when you talk. I can smell the anxiety in your sweat. I can tell from your breathing that you're scared. So let me ask you something, Lorenzo. Who's really the defective one here? The Omega who was valued enough to be claimed by three of the most powerful alphas in the city? Or the alpha who's so insecure he has to insult people from across the room? Silence. Then someone started clapping, then someone else. Then the whole section of the room erupted in applause. You have 10 seconds to leave, Caspian said coldly, before I make you leave. Lorenzo left. Ran, actually. I heard his footsteps retreating quickly. That was incredible, Kieran breathed in my ear. You destroyed him. He deserved it, I said. No one insults my alphas and gets away with it. Your alphas? Ryland's voice was warm with amusement. Mine, I confirmed. All three of you, forever. That night, when we got home, they showed me exactly how much they appreciated my defense of them, and I showed them exactly how much I appreciated being theirs. 6 months after the claiming, my father tried one last time. He showed up at the estate gates, demanding to see me. Security called Caspian, who came down to the study where I was reading. Victor is at the gates. Says he has legal documents proving you're not of sound mind to consent to the bond, that we coerced you, that he wants you back under his custody. I set down my audiobook player. He's lying. Those documents don't exist because I'm perfectly sound of mind and you didn't coerce me. I know, Caspian said. But he's threatening to go to the media, make a scene. Says you'll talk to him, if we let him in. Then let him in, I said calmly. I'll talk to him, but I want you there, all three of you. I want him to see what he gave up when he sold me. 10 minutes later, Victor was in the study. I could smell the alcohol on him, the desperation, the anger. Ren, he started. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for months. These men, they won't let me see you. They're keeping you here against your will. They're not, I interrupted. I'm here by choice. I'm bonded to them. Claimed. Mated. This is my home. You don't know what you're saying, Victor insisted. You're blind. You can't possibly understand what they are, what they do. I know exactly what they do, I said. They run a shipping empire. They own property across the city. They're powerful and dangerous and probably do things that aren't entirely legal. And I love them anyway. All three of them. They're using you. You used me, I interrupted, my voice hard. You sold me to pay your debts. You spent 18 years making me feel like I was a burden, like my blindness made me worthless. You never once asked if I was happy, if I was safe, if I needed anything. You just took, and when you finally ran out of things to take, you sold me. Ren, they've given me more in 6 months than you gave me in 18 years, I continued. They've made me feel valued, wanted, loved. They've never made me feel like my blindness was a flaw. They've adapted their entire lives to make sure I'm comfortable and safe and happy. So no, I'm not going back with you. I'm never going back with you. You ungrateful. He's done talking to you, Caspian said coldly. And now so are we. You sold him. You gave up all parental rights. The contract you signed is legally binding. You have no claim on him, no custody, no rights, nothing. If you try to contact him again, Rylan added quietly, we'll have you arrested for harassment. And trust me, we have the resources to make those charges stick. You're out of your fucking mind if you think Victor started. We think you should leave, Kieran interrupted, his voice pleasant but with steel underneath. Now, before we make you leave. Security escorted Victor out. I heard him shouting the whole way, threats and accusations and slurred curses. Then the door closed, and he was gone. I sat very still, processing. It was over. He was really gone. "Are you okay?" Caspian asked quietly. "I'm perfect," I said, because I finally told him the truth, that he was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and you three are the best. Kieran pulled me into his arms. Rylan joined from the other side. Caspian wrapped around all of us, his solid presence grounding. "He was wrong about you," Caspian murmured. "You're not worthless. You're priceless." "Damn right I am," I said. "You paid $500,000 for me. That's $500,000 of Prime Omega right here." "Best investment we ever made," Kieran said, laughing. "Still think you could have negotiated up to $550K, I said. "That extra $50K would have been my matcha latte fund." "I'll give you $1 million matcha latte fund right now," Caspian said. "Just say the word." "Don't spoil him," Rylan protested. "Too late," Kieran said. "We've been spoiling him for months." "You really have," I agreed. "I'm completely spoiled, ruined for any other alphas." "Good," all three of them said in unison. 1 year after I'd moved into the Volkov estate, they threw a mating ceremony. Not a wedding exactly, but a formal recognition of our bond in front of all their business associates, their family, their entire world. I wore clothes so soft and expensive I was afraid to move. Anton had described them to me: black pants, a cream-colored sweater that matched the Volkov's family colors, shoes that were definitely Italian leather. The ceremony was in the garden, the one Kieran had described to me so many times I could picture it in my mind. Roses and jasmine and a fountain with 3 tiers. Anton walked me down the aisle, I'd insisted, since he'd been more family to me than my father ever was. I counted my steps, following the sound of the fountain, and when I reached the end, 3 hands reached for me. Caspian's, Rylan's, Kieran's. "We, Caspian, Rylan, and Kieran Volkov," they said in unison, "claim Ren Hayes as our mate, our Omega, our partner in all things. We promise to protect him, provide for him, and love him for all our days. I, Ren Hayes," I said, my voice steady, "accept Caspian, Rylan, and Kieran Volkov as my mates, my alphas, my home. I promise to stand with them, support them, and love them for all my days. Even though I still can't see their faces, and they could still be purple with tentacles." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "Are we?" Kieran asked, grinning. "Purple with tentacles?" "I don't know," I said. "Anton, are they purple with tentacles?" "No, Master Ren," Anton said with perfect seriousness. "They're quite handsome, actually." "Damn," I said. "I was hoping for tentacles. Would have made things interesting." More laughter. Then Caspian pulled me close and kissed me, deep and claiming, and the crowd erupted in applause. The reception was a blur of congratulations and food and Kieran narrating everything for me. "Grandmother just arrived. She's wearing purple. No, not purple like tentacles, like actual purple. A dress. She looks very elegant. The ice sculpture is melting. It's supposed to be a swan, but it's starting to look more like a very sad duck. Someone's drunk uncle is trying to do the worm on the dance floor. It's not going well." I laughed until my sides hurt, danced with all 3 of my mates, ate cake that was apparently 4 tiers of chocolate ganache with gold leaf, according to Kieran's detailed description. That night, in our bedroom, with all 3 of them surrounding me, I finally felt it, the absolute certainty that I was home. "No regrets?" Caspian asked, echoing the question from months ago. "Not a single one," I said. "My father sold me thinking I was worthless. Turns out I was priceless. I just needed the right people to see it." "We saw it the moment you walked into our study," Rylan said quietly. "Couldn't believe Victor was stupid enough to give you up." "His loss," Kieran said. "Our gain." "Definitely your gain," I agreed. "You got me and my superior cookie baking skills." "And your superior smart mouth," Caspian added. "And your superior ability to destroy business rivals with words alone," Rylan said. "And you," Kieran finished. "Just you. That's all we ever wanted." I reached for them in the darkness, found their faces by touch, traced the features I'd memorized. Caspian's sharp jaw, Rylan's straight nose, Kieran's smile, lines. I still can't see you, I said softly. I'll never be able to see you. Never know what color your eyes are, or if you look alike, or if you're really as handsome as everyone says. Does it matter? Caspian asked. I thought about it. About everything they'd done for me, everything they'd given me. The home, the safety, the love, the way they'd adapted their entire lives to include me. The way they'd made my blindness irrelevant instead of defining. No, I said. It doesn't matter at all, because I know you in all the ways that count. I know your voices, your scents, your touches. I know Caspian's the first one up and the last one to bed. I know Rylan watches over us like a guardian. I know Kieran narrates the world, so I never feel like I'm missing anything. I don't need to see you to know I love you. We love you too, they said together. And there, in the darkness that was my entire world, surrounded by the three alphas who'd claimed me, I finally understood something my father never had. I wasn't worthless because I was blind. I was priceless because I was loved. And that made all the difference. 2 years after the mating ceremony, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. I'd started working with Anton officially, helping manage the household operations. It turned out I was good at organization, at keeping track of schedules and inventory by memory and feel. Anton said I was better at it than anyone he'd worked with in 30 years. You don't get distracted by how things look, he explained. You focus on function, on efficiency. It's refreshing. The triplets had gradually included me more in their business operations, not the illegal parts, but the legitimate shipping and real estate holdings. I'd sit in on meetings, listening to negotiations and contracts, and sometimes I'd catch things the others missed. Inconsistencies in people's voices, lies hidden in tone, nervousness that betrayed dishonest intent. Your Omega has a remarkable ear for deception. One of their lawyers said after a particularly tense contract negotiation, where I'd quietly warned Rylan that the other party was lying about their assets, he caught what 3 lawyers missed. He catches everything, Caspian said with unmistakable pride. That's why we keep him. I'd also started teaching self-defense classes for other Omegas at a community center downtown. Rylan's method of teaching me to fight by sound and feel had given me an idea why not teach other Omegas who couldn't rely on sight, either due to blindness or other circumstances. The classes were small at first. 5 Omegas, all nervous, all convinced they couldn't learn to protect themselves. But within weeks they were throwing each other to practice mats, learning to read body language by sound, to sense attacks before they landed. You're giving them more than self-defense? Kieran said, watching one of my classes. You're giving them confidence, showing them their limitations aren't what they thought. Someone did that for me, I said quietly. Seems only fair to pass it on. The triplets came to every single class, standing in the back, watching with those intense stares I couldn't see but could feel. Their alpha pride in their Omega was palpable, flooding through our bond until I could barely concentrate on teaching. One evening, 6 months into running the classes, a young Omega approached me after everyone else had left. Master Ren, can I ask you something personal? Sure, I said, folding the practice mats by feel. How did you get past the fear of being with alphas after everything? I paused. Everything? Your father's selling you, she said quietly. Everyone knows the story. How he sold you to the Volkovs to pay his debts. How you were terrified but you stayed anyway. How did you trust them? I sat down on one of the folded mats, gestured for her to sit beside me. I didn't. Not at first. I spent the first month waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to show their true colors, for the cruelty to start. But it never did. What changed? They did small things, I said slowly, remembering. Caspian left me books he thought I'd like. Rylan taught me to fight, so I'd feel less helpless. Kieran read to me every night, even though he was exhausted from work. They adapted their entire lives to include me. They never made me feel like my blindness was a burden. And eventually I realized they weren't going to hurt me. They were never going to hurt me, because I was theirs, and they protected what was theirs. But they bought you, she said. Doesn't that bother you? They paid my father's debt. I corrected. There's a difference. They didn't buy me like property. They freed me from someone who saw me as worthless. And then, they spent every day after proving that I wasn't. She was quiet for a moment. I wish I could find that. You will, I said. Maybe not the same way I did, Maybe not with dangerous crime lords who are allergic to showing emotion in public, but you'll find people who see your worth, who love you not despite your scars, but with them. After she left, Kieran emerged from the shadows where he'd been waiting. That was beautiful. What you told her? It's true, I said simply. You three taught me my own worth. Seems only fair to help others learn theirs. He pulled me into his arms, pressed a kiss to my temple. Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the past 3 hours, I said. I was starting to worry. He laughed, that rich, warm sound that never failed to make my chest feel too full. I love you, Ren Hayes Volkov, even when you're being a smartass. Especially when I'm being a smartass, I corrected. Especially then, he agreed. That night at dinner, Caspian made an announcement. We have a situation that requires discussion. My stomach dropped. Situation in the Volkov household usually meant something dangerous, something that required the kind of business they didn't discuss around me. Your father surfaced again, Caspian continued. He's been telling people he was coerced into signing away his parental rights, that we threatened him, forced him to give you up. He's trying to build a case to invalidate the contract. I set down my fork carefully. Can he do that? No, Ryland said firmly. The contract is airtight. Multiple witnesses, notarized, completely legal. He has no grounds. But he's creating problems, Kieran added. Talking to journalists, trying to paint us as villains who stole his son. What do you need me to do? I asked. Nothing, Caspian said. We'll handle it. No, I shook my head. This is about me. I should handle it. Ren, Ryland started. I'm not fragile, I interrupted. I'm not going to break if I have to face him. And honestly, I want to. I want him to hear, from me, exactly what I think of him. What he did to me. What you three did for me. The triplets were silent, conferring through looks I couldn't see. Then Caspian. If that's what you want, but we'll be there. All of us. I wouldn't want it any other way, I said. 3 days later, Victor Hayes was escorted into the Volkov estate study by security. I'd insisted on meeting him here, on my territory, where I felt safe and strong. I sat in one of the leather chairs, my hands folded calmly in my lap. The triplets stood behind me, a united front of protective alpha energy. Ren, Victor started, and I could hear the false warmth in his voice. Thank God they're letting me see you. I've been so worried. Cut the act, I interrupted. There's no journalists here, no one to perform for. It's just us. And I want you to know something before we go any further. I'm here by choice. I chose to stay with them. I choose them every single day. They're manipulating you, Victor insisted. You're blind. You can't see what they really are. I can't see anything, I corrected. But I can hear everything. I heard you for 18 years, Victor. Every disappointed sigh when you had to explain my blindness to people. Every time you called me a burden. Every time you looked at me and wished I'd never been born. That's not. Don't lie, I said coldly. Not now. I heard it in your voice every single day of my life. The resentment, the regret. You didn't sell me to pay your debts. You sold me because you wanted me gone, and you found someone willing to pay for the privilege. Silence. But here's the thing you never understood, I continued. I was never worthless. You just couldn't see my value. And these 3 alphas? I gestured behind me. They saw it immediately. From the first moment I walked into their study making jokes about being worth less than a luxury car, they saw me. The real me. Not the blind son you were ashamed of, but the person I actually am. They're criminals, Victor spat. Dangerous men who loved me, I finished, who protected me, who made me feel safe for the first time in my entire life, who never once made me feel like my blindness was something to be ashamed of. So, yes, they're dangerous. To you. To anyone who threatens what's theirs. But to me, they're home. I stood, faced Victor's direction even though I couldn't see him. You signed a contract. You took the money. You gave up all rights to me. And I'm telling you now, in front of witnesses, that I'm exactly where I want to be. So take your fake concern and your threats to the media and leave. You're not my father anymore. You haven't been for 2 years. You'll regret this, Victor said, his voice shaking with anger. When they get bored of you, when they find a new Omega who can actually… Get out. Caspian's voice was absolute zero. You have 10 seconds before I have you forcibly removed. And if you ever try to contact Ren again, I'll make sure you regret it for whatever remains of your miserable life. Victor left, spewing threats and curses the whole way. Security escorted him out firmly. The door closed behind him. I stood very still, processing. It was really over. He'd tried one last time and failed. I'd faced him and won. Are you okay? Kieran asked softly. I'm perfect, I said. And I meant it, because I finally told him everything I should have told him years ago. And now he's gone for good. Ryland's arms wrapped around me from behind. You were incredible. Devastating, Kieran agreed, joining the embrace. Caspian's hand found my face, tilted it up. You destroyed him with words alone. I've never been prouder. He deserved it, I said. He deserved to know that selling me was the biggest mistake of his life, that I'm worth more than he ever imagined, that I'm loved by 3 of the most powerful alphas in the city, that I'm happy, that I won. You did win, Caspian murmured. You won everything. That night, wrapped between all 3 of them in our bed, I thought about how far I'd come. From the terrified blind Omega being sold by his father to the confident, loved mate of 3 alphas who would burn the world down for me. No regrets? I asked, the question that had become our ritual. Never, they said in unison. Good, I said. Because you're stuck with me forever. Promise? Kieran asked. Promise, I confirmed. And in the darkness that was my entire world, I finally understood something fundamental. I'd spent 18 years being told my blindness made me less, made me worthless, made me a burden. But the truth was simpler. My father sold me because he couldn't see my value. My alphas claimed me because they could. And that made all the difference in the world.